You're listening to Smythe on KABC, where we move beyond the debate and into discourse with people from all walks of life. Designed to save society from itself, join Kay and her guests as they navigate the toughest conversations and prove that the two-party way of thinking is killing America. As Kay always says, no one can control your freedom or free will but you. With that in mind, let's get into it.
Hey guys, you're listening to the Smythe Show on KABC this beautiful Friday night, and we're coming to you from the insecure and angry little town that we like to call Los Angeles in the dying state of California. If you're listening to the show as it goes out on KABC Radio, then thank you. You are a super dedicated listener, so hit me up on Twitter or Instagram at KSmythe or hashtag the Smythe Show. For those of you who don't know me, this is the first time that you're listening and learning about me and my work. I am a writer and researcher from South Wales in the UK, the same place that brought you Catherine Zeta-Jones, Tom Jones, Christian Bale, Michael Sheen, Dylan Thomas, and more. I don't know any of these people personally, but as we're all from South Wales, we're probably related. And unlike my fellow country folk, I am not a professional entertainer. I specialize in social sciences and work as an academic, private and public sector consultant, forecasting the future of behavioral trends and the outcomes of such trends. I also know how to influence these trends, which is why most of my clients hire me and why we're on the radio today. I started writing and being published as a journalist at the age of 11 and worked my way into 2 consecutive expert visas, one under the Obama administration, which cost me a fortune and took forever to get approved, and one under the Trump administration, which was approved overnight. I moved to California 5 years ago after spending much of the previous decade traveling here with my family, and have watched this place go from heaven on earth through a descent into the depths of hell thanks to the hypocrisy of our, quote, democratic leadership. But don't get me wrong, I think most people are hypocrites in their own way. I know I certainly can be. But unlike all government leaders, I'm not in a line of work where entire populations' lives are in my hands. So my hypocrisy only hurts me. And as an expert in unconscious bias mitigation, I know how to remove my personal opinion and hypocrisy from impacting the lives of others, a personality trait and professional practice that very few people I've met in the modern world actually possess or have any interest in. Now, there was a lot of back and forth before starting the show on what it was to be about, and more than anything, I didn't want to add more negativity to the incessant media propaganda on how we should all live, because I think this is really what's tearing America apart. I really wanted this opportunity to almost remove the debate from the table. Why? Well, I spend all day, every day turning people into doctors of science and consulting for both sides of the political spectrum, and with a wealth of thought leaders across the private sector on how to address real human problems in their day-to-day life and work. And when it comes down to it, the source of most crises in the modern world is our inability to grow up and let other people live how they want to live. I realize that I'm exposed to the paradigms of scientific data and political discourse as it relates to real Americans, more than most actual Americans. Quite frankly, I'm terrified about how this decade is going to play out, and if we keep trying to police other people's thoughts and feelings and opinions, oh God, it's just going to be a nightmare. And I moved to America because I believe in freedom and everything that freedom represents. I believe that you should be able to think, say, and feel anything you darn well please. And so long as your beliefs don't turn into physical action that limits the freedom of others, then we shouldn't have a problem. But unfortunately, what I'm seeing are my liberal but pro-gun friends losing their careers, my conservative but pro-choice colleagues being ignored. And I think that if someone's personal opinion is different to yours, it is your responsibility to learn about how and why their opinions have evolved, not completely dismiss them without bothering to try and listen. So with that in mind, I'm going to be, or at least attempt to be, the change that I want to see in the world. Over the next 10 weeks, myself and my amazing co-host, Danny Ho, will be joined by guests to discuss their lives, their lived experiences, and to show people from across the political spectrum that they can put their politics aside and let people live how they want to live, and that we can disagree in such a way that we don't have to cancel each other, and hopefully find some common ground amongst all the nutters currently screaming into the void about how they think we all should live. And I guess just before we get started, I also wanted to just kind of touch on the fact that today, it is 9/11. And, if you're listening from New York, I really can't imagine how difficult it must be not to be able to honor those we lost this evening in the way that we have done for the last 20 years. And, like all members of the millennial generation, one of, our first collective memories was September 11th, 2001. It's something that we all share. And I hope that everyone listening listening tonight took the time today to reflect upon the events that happened tonight back in 2001 and, just take some time. Take some time to think about what it meant to you as an American, as you guys can probably hear. And as I've already said, I'm not an American, but I know how much it hurt me. And I just want to kind of put that love out before we get into it tonight. So let's start as we mean to go forward, and let's start the show. My guest this evening is, I guess, probably the most important person in my life, I would say. And the reason that this guest was asked to come on is not only because he is family, it's because, I think that we as individuals really represent a lot of change that we want to see in the world. And I would like to re-record all of this and not put this first intro in, if that's okay.
Welcome, Lanny.
Welcome,
Well,
Lanny.
thank you very much for having me, guys. It's an exciting day, isn't it?
I mean, I'm excited. I can't believe this is finally happening. It's been this show has been in the works since before we met, I guess. I came on Dr. Drew and then we went out almost a year ago.
Yep.
And
The day before my birthday.
Yeah, the day before your birthday. That was our first date.
Easy to remember the anniversary, ladies and gentlemen.
And I also wanted to note that because of you, I got to meet Danny. You guys are cousins.
Danny's my butler. Oh, sorry. Damn it. Damn it.
Bodyguard.
It's bodyguard. There you go.
Well, actually, I guess, the purpose of this show is to talk about tough things in a way that we can all get along. And actually, on our second trip away, you almost became, I guess, our bodyguard as a result of...
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, so, it's not like me to do anything that isn't controversial. So today, I guess the show is going to be talking about how one way to get over racism is to start shagging the racism away as we have done, haven't we, darling?
I've said that from the beginning. Just put it in where you can and see what happens.
Yeah, we'd all get along better with that.
Yeah.
But no, I guess one of the things that I knew that I wanted to bring up on this show was race. It's something that's come up, I think, more in our relationship from other people than from us. It certainly wasn't something that I even picked up on, I think. When we first started going out, I would actually say that Koreans and Welsh people have a lot more in common than Korean and Welsh people have with Americans.
Absolutely. Starting with the drinking culture, I must say.
Oh, that's how we bonded, though.
Absolutely. Yes.
So our first date was the day before Lanny's birthday, as he said. And so when I realized that it was his birthday the next day, the first date we had was so incredible. I thought, well, there's no way I'm going to let this guy go out on his birthday and me not be there because it's his birthday. And if it's his birthday, he's going to have to go home with someone because what else happens on your birthday?
Right.
And I was like, there's no way he's going home with someone that's not me.
It was a good birthday, ladies and gentlemen. Very good birthday. Happy birthday to me.
But it was great. I showed up at 10:30, already drunk. One of my contact lenses fell out and I walked into a club that was full of Koreans.
Only Koreans, probably.
Only Koreans, yeah. I think
probably
I was...
had some weapons.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Yes.
It's K-Town, so
it is K-Town. So, yeah.
But no, I walk into the club and it's just like an ocean of Koreans. And the first thing that comes to my mind is, I should just go straight to the bar and get a drink and let someone find me because I can't see. I haven't got my contact lenses in and I'm going to get lost. And so I walk in and everyone was wearing really dark colors. That was the other thing as well. Everyone was wearing black and you were wearing, I think, a white shirt. And so you came up and found me before the party started, really, or I guess, you'd been drinking for a few hours ahead of time.
Many, yes.
So I guess our nights almost, I probably had a couple of drinks as soon as I finished work at 6, and then I'm out at 10. We drank until probably about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, which is not like most Americans. When I first moved out here and I described the drinking culture to my Caucasian American friends, they thought that I had a problem. I thought that they had a problem with fun. And so I feel like I've really come into myself and finally found my community here in the United States amongst, you beautiful men. And I think that really says it all about race and the British perspective on race. We don't care what race you are. We care how much you can drink.
Right. Again, you're hitting on the idea that we got along because of a certain similarity in our culture, right? And you and I look very different. We come from opposite ends of the earth, but yet we're able to get along and actually love each other. And for you to be the only, quote unquote, white girl in a sea of Korean people. I remember you telling me that it didn't dawn on you that you were the only white person because it was so joyful, everyone was getting along. It's not until people personally come up to you and ask you, the first question is, have you dated an Asian person? Or, what's it like dating an Asian person? Like we're an anomaly or something, or some kind of, I don't know, subpar human, or it's just a strange question. But I bring this up because you told me that in the UK, it's not that big of a deal in that the topic of race doesn't really come up.
Oh,
right?
No, it really doesn't. And we are heading into a break, but when we come back, this is what I want to dig into.
Yeah.
This is what I want to dig into today. So yeah, let's definitely get into it. Okay, we'll be back next segment. If you guys are enjoying the K Smythe Show on KABC, then head over to YouTube and my website, ksmythe.com, for the unedited versions and the footage from our recording today. Hey guys, you're back with the K Smythe Show on KABC. I am joined by my co-host, Danny Ho, and the incredibly talented, beautiful, wonderful Lanny Joon.
Hello, everybody.
So in the last segment, I kind of introduced everyone to me and introduced everyone to Lanny as my partner, although most of you have probably seen Lanny on television and in movies. And one of the things that we're talking about today is how me, a Welsh gal from South Wales, has come all the way out here to America, and I've fallen in love with this beautiful Korean man I have. So, and I mean, I also wanted to kind of touch on, I look at where my life was a year ago versus my life now. We have a dog, we have a future, we have everything ahead of us. But yeah, one of the main things that people still seem to always want to bring up is the fact that we're in a mixed race relationship. And yeah, like I said, I didn't realize that we were in a quote mixed race relationship until everyone started pointing it out to me, because we have way more in common than I certainly have with any of the white people that I've spent time with out here in California.
Yeah.
And I don't know, does it bother you when people just kind of reduce the stack down to that?
Yeah, it bothers me, but I'm so used to it. And I come from that perspective of race, actually, because the first thing that I did see is a white girl dating an Asian person, if I'm being honest. And yeah, as an Asian American male in this country, dating a white lady is like a win for us. I mean, there is that. I have to put that out there. But at the end of the day, it's not about that, because we obviously have fallen in love with each other. And there's something to say about when things click, regardless of culture or of color of the skin, it's personality, it's character. And if these things are more upfront and more talked about, rather than the colors of which we have, right? Which I think the media kind of points out and focuses on, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, I think it is very bothersome. And I've had some friends who have asked those personal questions. And I'm not going to name any names, but it's disheartening, right? Because my head goes to the headspace of, I am your good friend. And if I'm dating this person who is a white girl, what's the point of asking her, have you ever dated an Asian person? I get that it can be an inquisitive question, but if you're smart, knowing me, knowing that I do think of these things, if I'm not going to date someone that petty nor uneducated. And so I think if there's more of a thought process before asking a question like, have you ever dated an Asian? Mm-hmm. Right? Not even an Asian person.
Yeah.
It's, have you ever dated an Asian? Like we're a color of like a purse or something.
Yeah, and I mean, I haven't spent a huge amount of time in Asia. I've only ever really been to China and Hong Kong, but they're pretty close to each other, but it's a pretty big space.
Sure.
There's a lot of Asia.
Right.
There's a lot of different parts of Asia.
Yeah, we do all love rice, though. That's a given. Yeah. We do love rice. I mean, it's one of the first questions. It was a racially loaded question, but one of the first comments in middle school I got was, "Do you people always eat rice every day?"
Oh my god!
And I was like, "Yeah, we actually do. Because it's delicious. Who doesn't like rice on everything?" But it's again a different perspective. He came from a racially charged. I came from basically a straightforward point of view. Yeah, I eat rice every day, as a child.
Yeah, I mean,
what's wrong with that?
If I hadn't been raised during the mad cow epidemic, I would have eaten lamb every day. I don't shag them like all my English friends say. But yeah, it was really bizarre for me, especially coming from the UK, where, again, like I said, no one really cares about your race. They care about how well you can drink. They care about, whether your parents let us do drugs in your basement safely, obviously. And what I find the most entertaining is that it seems to be my super liberal friends who bring this up as a topic of conversation. Like when I talk to firstly, my conservative friends don't really have time to ask questions like that. I will say that. But it seems to, especially post Me Too, I feel like we're moving into the era now is more about kind of political correctness when it comes to race. And I would say that, our sense of humor, it's very not PC. I'm sure if people heard the way that we talk and make jokes when it's just the two of us, they'd be horrified. But considering how, at least I would say for the first 6-7 months of our relationship, it was all that anyone brought up. I just got to a point where I was like, well, if we can't make fun of it, then what the heck are we going to do?
Right.
And I mean, I don't know, what was it like for during high school for you guys? Were mixed race couples a thing? Because I also want to point out that both of you were born and raised, I guess you were born in Cincinnati, but raised here in Los Angeles. Yeah. And Los Angeles being one of these places where people are more interested in policing how you act and behave than how they act and behave. And so, was growing up here, was that a thing? I think you went to prom, right, with a white chick, I think, or
yeah, with a white chick, I did. Yeah,
and you've also had other white chicks you went to high school with talk to you about what racism really is.
Well, that wasn't in high school. This was just recently, actually. But yeah, I went to school with predominantly Caucasian people, and that's the majority of my upbringing. And so to me, it was just normal. There wasn't a divide. I definitely felt something that was different about me. But again, that's one of those things of being an Asian American in this country. Being raised here, you kind of fall through the cracks. Let me elaborate on that. I am Korean American, but I also grew up, in the words of the Asian community, too whitewashed, right? And so to the white community, obviously I wasn't white enough. And so I fell through the cracks within the community of the social spectrum in high school. Mm-hmm. And finding friends was very difficult. And not only that, you were picked on every day because I was also kind of very fat, in middle school. And this was the interesting part. I was basically the captain of the swim team in high school, my senior year. And yet I still had to deal with people calling me certain names because of the way I looked. And swimming's a big deal in Southern California. And you would think that being the captain of a swim team would kind of, redirect those comments, but no. And so coming from that world, on paper, I shouldn't like you. You know what I mean? I shouldn't like people like you, but I understand that people come from different perspectives and your upbringings are very different. And so the circumstances are very different. And I think that's what we need to try to understand is where do we come from? What are the upbringings that were taught to us by parents or by teachers or philosophers, whatever it is? Let's try to know the genesis of where we come from. Sorry, I was pounding on the table. I just got trouble. But it's, instead of throwing answers at each other with, have you ever dated an Asian? Or why not ask, what does he do? You know what I mean? Yeah. Even something stupid as that. Or what does he like?
Does he treat you well? Does he hit you?
Does he beat you?
Yeah.
Right.
Right. I would want my friends to worry about that, especially in the last 5 years of my relationship.
Yeah.
But no, I think you touched on a really interesting point. It really does come back to upbringing. And, I also want to kind of point out, I'm a hypocrite. I'm also a white person. I did grow up in South Wales in, a very mixed community. Right. We have a huge Islamic population, large Asian population. But at the end of the day, I also grew up in this kind of weird straddle between, we have a similar class, the same way that the race system works out here in the States, we have a very similar class system in the UK. Mm-hmm. And so, my family didn't have a lot of money, but we understood culture, and my grandfather and his wife were kind enough to kind of like pay for me and my parents to travel. Like I traveled the world and I got to experience all of these other cultures before I even turned 10 years old. So for me, being around people who didn't look like me, didn't speak the same language, that was very normal. Like when you grow up on campsites in, south of France and everyone there comes from all over the continent and no one speaks the same language and you have to communicate and find, like, you create games, you create tribes on these campsites. And so that was very normal for me. And when I go back to the UK and I look at my friendship groups, I think a lot of that is like almost translated into British culture too, like thanks to the amazing European Union. I think it's kind of funny that I can be pretty much a libertarian but still anti-Brexit. But when it comes to upbringing, one of the things that I've really noticed about a lot of my American friends is whether it's the education system or lack thereof, there doesn't seem to be a lot of emphasis on the positives of much of our history. And so we don't really talk about the fact that, I don't know, like what are some of the positives that I've learned about the Korean community and how you guys have... Okay, so here's one, right as we lead up into the break, that every American, especially women, need to listen to. Guys, kimchi cures everything. I'm not even trying to be a stereotype. I'm not trying to be...
Put it on your wounds, put it...
Everything.
Next to your bed.
Well, I've had ongoing issues with my throat, with my stomach, with my reproductive issues, like since moving out to the States, because the food here is very different again to Europe. And, Lanny's mum makes what I think is the best kimchi in the universe. And it cures my strep throat. And so there's like little things like that where I'm like, okay, you look at someone and you look at like how they look and you understand maybe that they're from a different country. But what do you actually know about that country? I would guarantee that most of the people who blow me up on social media, who want to hang out with me, want to be my friend from Caucasian communities out here, they wouldn't even know that kimchi is Korean. And so when your education system doesn't give you that opportunity to learn about another culture, what are you going to do?
Right.
But we'll get back into this after these messages from our sponsors. Is that how they say it? That's how they say it, right? Messages from our sponsors. Everyone, welcome back to the Smythe Show on KABC this beautiful Friday night. I hope you're having a wonderful time in Los Angeles. I'm only joking. It's literally impossible to enjoy living in California anymore. But in our last section, we were talking about how there's not really a lot of actual like cross-cultural education that occurs in the United States from the perspective of here's what's to celebrate about other cultures other than, the white people who stormed this this beautiful continent, really. Like, look at our national parks. I think America is absolutely stunning, which has led to, like the captain of the swim team still being relegated to his race. But Danny, you had a pretty big Korean community around you in your high school. That's correct, right? I met a lot of them, actually.
Yes, you did. What's funny is when we were talking earlier, in elementary and middle school, it was very multicultural. It's when we got into high school where the Koreans were only with the Koreans, the white people were only with the white people, Armenians with the Armenians. And yeah, kind of leads back to what you're saying with your friend asking, have you ever dated an Asian before?
Right.
I just don't understand why, as we get older, we literally become more racist.
Yeah, and just a tiny
Literally.
insert. And the person who asked that question was actually an Asian person.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of boggled my mind is, are you trying to defend me? Sorry, not to interject, but I
No.
put that out. Yeah, please continue.
I mean that's it. It's just it blows my mind.
Yeah.
It blows my mind that this still happens, even amongst a fellow Asian.
Right.
Actually, I want to kind of just throw this out there. This might be a little bit controversial, might get in a little bit of trouble for this, but the friend that asked you that, let's be honest, it's someone who's trying to get into the entertainment community and all of the, you know what, I don't have an NDA, so I can talk about this. So I will say that a lot of the people I've worked with in the Asian acting community, I can think of one person in particular, they had literally none of their mentors, none of their friends, none of their colleagues were Asian up until Crazy Rich Asians came out. And then all of a sudden it was like the tokenism to kind of jump on. I don't know if we've talked about it obviously between the two of us.
Yeah.
because as people get older, I think they do get more racist. I mean, there's that saying, what is it? If you're not a liberal when you're young, you're heartless. If you're not a conservative when you're old, you're an idiot. But I mean, I feel like America takes that to an extreme, and it's not just white people who are guilty of that. I don't know. It's just something that, look, I study trends. I study macro trends. I remember one of the first articles I ever wrote was how there's been these consistent issues particularly in Hollywood, where in the 90s it was the black communities who were always the bad guy. As we moved through what they called the noughties, it was always the Middle Eastern person or actor who was the bad guy. Then we came into the kind of 2010s and it was always the Latinos who were the bad guy. But now we've got this thing where we've got like Crazy Rich Asians, and we've got this huge like upswing in Asian American entertainment. And I think it's incredible art, but there is just as much clickiness within that. And most of the people who make it are pretty whitewashed, I've noticed. Like, I just want to, kind of throw that out.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I look at Parasite winning, did it win Best Film? It won Best Film?
Yes, it did.
I mean, that's incredible. I mean,
massive.
This should have been happening for years, though. Let's be honest.
And rightly so. I mean, yes, I guess I'm a little biased in the decision of the movie, but it was a wonderful film. Sorry, that there's nothing behind that thought. Please continue.
Well, no, I mean, I think that it was a beautiful movie, but at the same time, when you take like a step back and you look at a movie, say like Mulan that's just come out, that maybe is more what we're kind of talking about. It's an all Asian cast. Yet
heck yes.
Huge, like exclusively amazing Asian cast, but everyone involved in everything behind the scenes was white.
Yes.
Or, not Asian.
Right.
Like
and
the entire crew.
I'm trying to approach this as even keeled as possible, right? 50%.
You don't want to get cancelled, babe. Don't get cancelled. Don't get cancelled in our first show, because then we got to make loads of money, and then we got to start making movies, and that's a whole other kettle of fish.
Okay, got it. But was it a win for us? Absolutely, 100%. I mean, to see personal friends on the big screen in the manner of representing Asian culture, specifically Chinese culture, their culture. It's exciting to watch, right? That's 50% of it, which is the face of Mulan, which I am not complaining about whatsoever. And the other 50% is, how was it made? Who wrote it? Who produced it? Who edited it? Who's releasing it? And again, if you look at the history of Hollywood, yes, it's predominantly Caucasian, and for a reason. They started it, right? I understand the history. But if you're going to come about with a movie saying that it's culturally representative of a certain culture, specifically Chinese, which is a culture that has existed for centuries and thousands of years, right? The face of it is Asian. Great. But what they are saying was written by a person not of their culture. Now, am I saying it's impossible for people not of the culture to write it? No. If you experience it and if you've dealt with it, then yes, absolutely. But if you have no idea of what you are trying to portray, or if you're just looking at books, or you're talking to friends who have lived there or are of that culture, in my opinion, I do not think that's enough to direct a film. And I'm not knocking the director. She did a wonderful job. But I think there could have been a different approach.
Well, it's just inclusion, right? It's just like, it's literally in the name. Like and I say this again, this is completely my opinion, because, I literally cannot speak for anyone else. I cannot tell other people what to do.
Right.
But what you have is, it's actually, I hate to admit it, I actually fell asleep during the movie. There are great pictures of me with our new dog asleep during this movie.
Drinking quite a bit.
I was drinking quite a bit. Me? No. It's Friday night, guys. Get into it. But no, I think like one of the things that almost bothers me, there was a movie that came out, I don't even know how long ago. It was shot in my high school, and it was supposed to be a Welsh film, and the two main teachers in it, one was Minnie Driver, I think you're a brilliant actress, but you can't do a Welsh accent to save your life. And the other teacher in it was Stephen Fry. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but if you're going to do a Welsh film, like, no, it needs to be Welsh people who understand the culture.
Sure.
And even though I thought Mulan was great, I don't know. I spent time in China. It didn't feel very Chinese to me. I didn't learn anything about Chinese history. Would I allow our future children to watch that and be like, this is China, guys? No.
Yeah.
Like the original Mulan was more Chinese. And I felt like it was very Disneyfied. But again, like I didn't get any of that culture out of it. And I just don't think that... Look, I just like to hold people to higher standards. And when it comes to Hollywood, I feel like they could have done even a tiny bit of effort to make any of the crew like actual people of Chinese descent or people from China.
Right.
Like there wasn't even any Chinese spoken in the film.
Zero.
Like
there was no singing, which was, look, it was an artistic choice, right? And I think it worked. It's just the issue of if you're going to present this film in a certain light, you have to back it up. And you can't back it up with words you have said before.
Yeah.
Which are, look at the people on the screen. They're Asian. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. Thank you for that bone. Which is an absolute thank you. But you are literally telling us what to say when you are not a part of this culture. Not my culture. I'm Korean, right? And so... If the film was presented in a different light, saying this is our version of Chinese culture, not actual Chinese culture, then maybe we can swallow it easier, so to speak.
Yeah, I can see that. But again, it's like, it's this weird thing, and I don't want to go off on too much of a tangent now because I also want to get it back into talking more about America. Like, let's not like give Disney too much of our airtime because let's be honest, they've got plenty of money. If they want their own KABC show, they can pay for it.
Right.
Or they can sponsor this one. Right. We are always looking for sponsors.
Not to interrupt you, but I just have to say it's hard for us actors to even speak up about these things because it goes to the notion of we do not want to bite the hand that feeds us.
Oh,
we're very clear.
Yes.
We know the food chain supply. But at the end of the day, we are in a racially charged moment, but that shouldn't ignite fights, but we should approach it in a manner of, again, let's think about where the approach is, right? Instead of looking at the face value of what we're seeing, look at the genesis of it, look at the roots of it. Where does this person come from? What was Disney's perspective on approaching it this way? And why hasn't it changed?
Well, I mean, it's like the same... Like you could literally take exactly what you just said, but make it about broad spectrum racial issues here in the US. And we've got to go like, oh, look at where it came from. And one of the places that I guess I'm looking at where a lot of the issues, I guess in America came from as it relates to race, I hate to say it, but it comes from 3 strike and stop and frisk. And all of these laws that your wonderful vice president who's running for president signed into law. And so, I think what's interesting is you can look at Hollywood as almost like a microcosm of America, and it is still placating and telling people that they're doing the right thing. But I swear, if I was going to go into an audition today, I would probably still have to do some pretty dirty stuff to get into, and racism is still very prevalent, and there's not enough diversity behind the scenes of anything that goes on in this town. And the same, I think, can be said for politics as well. And that's kind of where the crossover comes. I think that's one of the things that we really have in common that we can talk about.
Yeah. I would say that.
Yeah. But when we come back from the break, we're actually going to get into more about 2020. We're going to talk about how the 3 of us have survived this year and touch on some more cheerful things. I promise. For those of you watching the show online today, please head over to O Fashion to get all of my looks from today's recording. They will also be available on my Instagram and all my social media. And you can always hit me up to get the personal links through to the items themselves. Hey guys, and welcome to our next chapter on the K Smythe show today. I'm still joined by my amazing co-host Danny Ho and my Favorite, I guess you're okay. Actually, maybe you're not my favorite person,
All right.
but you're all right.
Okay.
You're all right, Lanny. You're pretty cool.
Well,
Lanny.
you're my favorite. That's okay.
See? Thank you.
So in the last segment, I kind of wrapped it up with something that's probably going to upset a lot of my quote liberal friends out here, and me pointing at Joe Biden and Kamala Harris for being the source of a lot of racial tension out here in the States. And that's purely from like a factual perspective. Like if you go back to the 90s, you can watch how, and I recommend everyone go and watch the Michael Moore documentary on this, Fahrenheit 11/9. You can basically watch how Bill Clinton kind of commandeered the Democratic Party and really put into place a lot of the laws and even like Glass-Steagall. I mean, you can trace 2008 back to the Clinton administration, and what we're seeing in the Democratic Party is just these people again being positioned for leadership roles to continue with this old guard way of thinking, that they've got the media on their side saying,
Right.
let's ramp up a lot of these, not that, police aren't shooting unarmed black people, they are, but the propaganda and the craziness that's coming out of the media
Yes.
that's literally driving people insane. So one of the things that we've done this year as a family to kind of survive 2020 is about 6 months ago, we just made an executive decision. Let's not watch the news anymore. Let's read about it. Let's, in my work, I'm exposed to like the real data anyway. I actually give data to news organizations and I watch them butcher it and turn it into propaganda. That's, what I do for a living is I take these data sets. And so what we did was really try and take a step back. It's not the easiest thing to travel around the United States right now, but we've seemed to have made it happen. I had a conversation with a really dear friend of mine before we even went on our last road trip, because, we were heading to Utah. I don't really know that much about Utah. I knew that we were going there as a, quote, mixed race couple. I'm just so sick of being defined like that. We're not a mixed race couple. We're an awesome couple. But I spoke to her. I should also point out the fact she's black. And she said, she told me about her kind of issues with traveling in the United States, like being refused service in restaurants when she's walked in as being part of a mixed race couple, having to walk behind her boyfriend, things like that.
Right.
But we just came back from Utah, and I don't know about you guys, but I had a lovely time. I know all these Californians are moving to Texas to avoid the kind of liberal psychosis.
Yeah.
But we were spending time with, I don't even know what kind of politics they had. We didn't talk about it. We didn't need to.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that a lot of the crazy that's coming out of America is actually coming out of the news, not coming out of America.
I think you hit on a good point. I hear you talk and I can only hear the left, and I'm not approaching this from a left or right perspective, but hearing you speak, quote unquote, badly about Biden and Harris, I can only imagine what the left is thinking about you right now, right? She's knocking on Biden, hence she must be for Trump. But what people need to understand is you come from a place of research, science, and numbers, right? Not feelings.
I can't even legally vote.
Right. So there's no agenda for you. And I think that should be very clear, is you are coming from a calculative number research position, right? Not some school teacher from Idaho or a school teacher from New York feeling a certain way. You come from a place of science, right? But yet we live in a society now where people literally say, I don't believe in science. So where do we go from there? What do we do with that?
Honestly, I think that what we do with that is just let people live. Yeah, exactly. That's what we do best. Example, again, like I said, we were just in Utah. We went out for a meal one night. It was great. We had, Danny ordered probably one of the best steaks I've ever had.
Tomahawk.
Oh my God.
Black Angus.
What was the name of that restaurant? We should give him a shout out.
Stagecoach Grill.
The Stagecoach Grill in
Apple Valley, Utah.
Or is it in Hurricane?
Around there.
It was around there. There's 4 restaurants.
The worst shout out ever. Sorry.
Sorry, guys. We love you. But no, we had an amazing time, an amazing meal. We had a great chat with our server there, who's a really cool guy. We were laughing about how, Like, we can't even go out and get ice cream in California without being yelled at for like wearing our masks. And I'm like, guys, masks aren't really science.
And you didn't, by the way, you did have your mask on.
I had my mask on.
You just were adjusting it and then someone barked at you to put it back on.
Yeah.
That right there is the climate we live in. And how do we have a conversation with that climate?
Oh, we don't.
We're socially charged like I am right now. You know what I mean? We're so socially charged to go at each other's throats that we can't even have a conversation. So, sorry.
Exactly. That's so perfect. You set my point up wonderfully. So, yeah, we're in this restaurant in Utah. We have a great meal. It was like, that's about the sum of the story. We come back, and as soon as we tell people out here, oh, we went to Utah, we had this amazing meal out one night, the first question, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but the first question most people in our friendship group ask is, oh, was it okay? Did you get like looks and stuff? Because, you know, like you guys, I don't know if you know, but you guys are Asian. I don't know if you noticed.
Yeah, they didn't care about
no one cared
what color we were.
And funny enough, do you remember the server saying to us, the people who actually live there don't really talk about it. It's only when people from outside of that state, specifically California, we bring it up and we make them uncomfortable because we think it's a thing.
Yeah.
And to them, it's just living a normal life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy, he's friends with everybody, right? And I think that's an issue right now with the left and the right, the Biden supporters and the Trump supporters, whatever. They don't care about your opinion. It's only about their opinion. They speak what they want to say, and that's it. You either listen to me or, go away. Right. But this guy, the server, he was like, let's all be friends. Why can't that be the solution?
Exactly. And if anything, he was so apprehensive about talking about what we wanted to talk about because it's uncomfortable for them, because they are put on the spot left and right by the people who don't understand it.
But of course, I roll up and I'm just like, I'm going to put you on the spot, talk politics. You into it? Yeah, let's get into it, shall we? All right then. But no, one of the things that I thought was really funny that he was saying was, I guess a couple of days before we got there, a family walked in. And they were decked out head to toe in Trump gear. And when this guy went over to talk to them, they were like, oh, we're from California, but we can't wear that here. And I was like, wait, California's purple. Like, it's only people who are like staunch Democrats. I like cut myself and I bleed blue. They're the only ones who think that California's a blue state. Like, California is predominantly purple. I would say it's actually more red than places like Texas in this day and age. And that's, again, like you said, thank you so much, darling, for bringing that up. Purely from a scientific perspective. I'm a macro social scientist, and the macro population of California is predominantly red, if not purple. I would love to go off on a tangent about why that is, but that's not the point of this show. The point is, I think it's really funny that we as, me as an immigrant, you guys as being, quote, minorities in the United States, even though I guess if you think about it, really the first people who actually settled here in the United States were also Asian because they came over on the land bridge, and that's what makes up...
Bering Strait, right.
Yeah, and that's what makes up the Native American population.
Sure. Right.
But I just think it's funny how we leave California that's supposed to be, this cradle of diversity and inclusion. And like, we're all supposed to like love each other and be friends and get along and peace and love. And yet I literally have messages in my DMs already just being like, why are you on KBC? That's why Ben Shapiro has his show. Why would you ever want to do that? And I'm like, right, sorry, this is a career opportunity for me? Are you joking?
Right.
And it's just like, instead of being, or like even just not engaging, why don't you stop policing my morality? Stop policing the way that we feel out here.
Yeah.
I understand why the media propagates it. They make a lot of money from it.
Sure. That right there. And I would like to see what types of things she posts. I would like to hear what she says. And
it's multiple people, men and women, who are giving me.
And may I dare say, is it very similar to that of what the media says over and over and over and over again? And that is so disheartening when your personal friends start to regurgitate what the media says, knowing that their agenda, again, their agenda is to divide us.
Yep.
If you cannot see that, I don't know where to go with that.
There's more of us than there are politicians, like us being like normal people. There are more of us than there are people who work in the media.
Yeah.
But they make money off divide and conquer. And I hate to say it, but it really is like for us out here and our lived experience, the only people who attack us and don't give us space to live how we want to live are, I would say, the extreme fundamentalist liberals. And they are mostly based from here in Los Angeles. All of them want to be in the entertainment industry, but aren't talented enough. I'm just throwing that out there too.
Let me ask you, Danny, my experience I was born in Cincinnati, and so I moved here as a month old. So I grew up in LA. I have dealt with more racism in Southern California than I have when I've traveled all around the United States, specifically even the South. I have a lot of family in the South. If the South gets a bad rep for a lot of reasons, but my experiences have been amazing in the South. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure there are some terrible parts of the South, just like there are terrible parts about LA, San Francisco, New York. But why is it that the place where I grew up in, I have to deal with the most amount of racism, and yet when I travel outside of California, that's when I can be at rest? I look at LA as a microcosm of this country. Yes, you're absolutely right. Is it diverse? Yeah. But do we get along? No. Can we have a drink together? No. Because we keep yelling at each other like I am doing right now. Again, I apologize.
Okay, guys, we are going to wrap up the show for today. I want to thank you guys all for tuning in. This has been so much fun. We have so much more that we want to say. So if you want more, I would strongly recommend heading over to ksmythe.com and watching all of the behind the scenes footage. If you liked my outfit today, you can also head over to Smythe or to O Fashion, as they were kind enough to supply me with my wardrobe for this entire show because I don't know how to dress myself. I'd also like to give a shout out to Mandy Jo at the eFox Salon, as she is the person who's been doing my hair for all of these years, and I've never really been able to give her the props that she deserves. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. ksmythe.com for the rest. Love you. Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, guys.